With over 10 million copies sold and crowned the best-selling manga of 2023, Blue Lock quickly established dominance in the sports genre. Rather than sticking to the typical high school sports formula, it forged its own path, ditching the usual power of friendship for a darker, edgier tone. Because what else do you expect when a bunch of passionate young boys gather together in one place? I'm sure nothing straight. In the land of collectivism, Blue Lock hailed the idea of an individual, the idea that it's the most self-centered, egoistic, and borderline obnoxious people that rise to the top and are remembered for their valor. Take Zlatan for an extreme example. I'm pretty sure he was the biggest inspiration behind Blue Lock. In contrast, those who put the team first are forgotten. Blue Lock took on the concept of egoism and weaponized it for the world to see, particularly for this little island in the east, where even though such unique people emerge, team effort always gets the bread while the nails that stick out the most get hammered back down. Blue Lock went against its peers such as Haikyuu or Kuroko no Basuke and laid the groundwork for a path that does not worship team before player. There's no such thing as nakama no chikara, and characters like Kageyama who wanted to do everything on their own would definitely thrive in the world of Blue Lock. But then comes the question, is it really wrong to prioritize personal growth over a team's success? Well, let's just say there's a balance. No matter how edgy and cringe this message sounds when the characters say it, who seem to be prepared to die for the sport, their words do carry weight. During the early chapters of Blue Lock, we saw how no matter how much of a losing game it may seem, taking risks is and will always be a necessity. If Isagi were to have stuck to his original ways, he would have been disqualified on the spot. So kicking out Kira, the flashy Oikawa, and putting himself first was Isagi's first test in Blue Lock, and he passed it with flying colors in what has now become the only animated episode of Blue Lock. I refuse to accept the PowerPoint presentations disguised as animation for the rest of the show. It makes me wonder what happened to the animators for the first episode. Anyways, this concept of a self-centric approach bleeds into the real world as well, with the Japanese football team evolving once the more individual, notable players made the team. They realized how they could multiply a team's chances rather than just being another addition to the team. Yes, I understand that football is a team sport, but every player is more than just a member of the team. That is a lot of teams. Blue Lock does a great job in this regard by letting every character step under the spotlight and adapting and growing by whatever means possible. And by whatever, I mean whatever. Whether it be shooting with blindfolds on or competing against high-performance AI-controlled bots that mimic their movements in real time. Ego really went all out with these torture devices disguised as training methods. He must really enjoy seeing people suffer. I mean, look at Anri, for instance. Not only does she keep up with his strange shenanigans, she's also in charge for the heap load of laundry. She must have either lost a bet, or she's just as much of an eccentric as Ego. Ego sure is popular with the ladies when the only female character in Blue Lock, except for Chigiri, is his personal babysitter. Now, let's talk about someone who's on the other end of the spectrum. Someone who's somehow got zero game with the ladies. Aiku, who is one of the under-20 players, talks about the concept of individualism using the analogy of flowers, on how schools or systems in their country cater to the growth of like-minded individuals and seldom diversify their focus, which results in plenty of potential down the drain and everyone turning out the same. Each flower is sowed within the same garden, subject to the same conditions, resulting in only one kind of strength to flourish while the rest all die out and wane. Aiku mentions how they don't even have the freedom to choose where and when they can bloom, which led to him feeling dead inside and losing the initial love he had for the game. We see this a lot in real life where young people are often forced to fulfill the dormant dreams of their parents with no say of their own. I'm pretty sure you've experienced this, especially if you grew up in an Asian household. A doctor, engineer, or pilot. In the case of football, a striker is the one true path to success, while the rest, well, a grand waste of time and money. But it's this very systematic approach that keeps these institutions alive in the first place, so whatever falls outside their idea of perfection is often labeled as a failure. I mean, why go out of their way to let children dream when the current system is making them a shit ton of money? Would be a pretty bad deal now, wouldn't it? Every character in Blue Lock tries to abolish this system under Ego's watchful gaze, who gives them space to learn and grow, only interfering when needed, and even then, never forcing his ways down their throats. Mentors in real life should take notes. With that said, there is a very important point that needs to be discussed here. The way these characters phrase doing these things may be unbearably off-putting at times, or most of the time, with Isagi saying with a straight face how he'll devour Rin, and Rin itching to have a taste himself, which is anything but normal or decent. All of them need to be diagnosed, especially Shidou. He needs to be investigated for physical assault first of all before anything. Do they not find their words cringeworthy at all, is what I ask myself every time I see them, but I guess some people find that cool. 13-year-olds maybe? I shouldn't judge their tastes then. I won't be any different than the system now, would I? We need to understand that these guys are going through a phase, the duration for which is no less than a lifetime, and accept them with open arms, no matter how questionable they may seem. They do pour blood, sweat, and tears into their goals, so they deserve to be a little mentally disturbed. Which brings me to another series of questions. What happened to school? Why does no one question that? Does the story take place during summer vacations, or did they all collectively drop out? Shidou, I can expect, was expelled or something, and Igaguri and Gagamaru were picked up from the mountains. The rest, well, not so sure about them. I'll refrain from questioning Ego's means for bringing this football utopia to life. After all, he's raised quite the unpolished gems, as he loves to call them. The very gems who, in their pursuit of grandeur, lose sense of themselves and appear rather beastly, often forgetting that it's a pitch they're standing on and not a battlefield. Kunigami and Naruhaya, after their elimination, acted as they were being sent to the trenches or the guillotines. They looked so devastated for some reason. I get that it's their dream and all, and they've spent their entire lives of, 16 or 17 years chasing these dreams. But sometimes, most of the time, they get too carried away. But then again, it's the same obsession that allows them to nurture this egoism that sets them apart from the rest of the world. Isagi's puzzles, which look very pretty and satisfying to watch, are especially an excellent representation of egoism, wherein, in order to complete a puzzle, every player plays a part, and those with the highest chances are given the spotlight. It gets to the point that sometimes even the main character plot armor crumbles in the face of raw talent. Isagi does pull through by the end, but I always end up doubting his capabilities. I mean, did you see Loki outrun a football during a free kick? Isagi looks like a regular old normie in front of all of these monsters. Being egoistic here doesn't mean drowning the whole team down with you. It means it's about taking calculated risks, adapting and proving yourself while still contributing to the team's success. Let's say, for example, you have a star on your team that shines the brightest when certain conditions are met. Those conditions may arise by chance, or if you're smart enough, by will. One of the things I love about Blue Lock is how Isagi and the others are always encouraged to think and clearly verbalize those thoughts. In chapter 158, when Isagi asked Noel what he could do to become better and improve his rankings, Noel mentioned how being able to verbalize your thoughts is the only way to eliminate wishful thinking and take full control over the variables within and outside. Being able to near perfectly visualize your plan is the first step to realizing it. This is what triggers conditions that favor you, which not only allows the person to be more in touch with themselves, their emotions and feelings, but also strengthens their connection with the people around them. Platonic or not, as long as it lets them understand each other on a deeper level and create the chemical reactions Isagi seems to obsess over, it's worth all the time and effort. Maybe Isagi's true weapon lie in his thinking abilities, and since he's so good at it, he ends up attracting all the monsters like Bachira or Kaiser. Even though Isagi loves to score, he'd make a pretty good playmaker, and not exclusively a striker. No matter how hard I try, I cannot bring myself to see him competing with Loki or Rin. Those guys scare me sometimes. Alright, where were we? Yes, thinking. Knowing oneself is knowing one's creator. To know one's purpose is the very essence of living. As randomly generated and far-fetched as that sounds, it's very true when you try to take a more simplistic view on life. Or like Noah says, eliminate fillers that distract and lead you astray from your purpose in life. He takes it a bit too far though. And here I thought Ego was crazy until Noah walked in and asserted his dominance as the biggest wacko around. I keep trying to reality check these guys, which means I'm no different from the money grubber top dogs of the system. I'll have to start looking into what it means to devour people to level up and order a set of puzzles. Maybe that'll help. Anyways, Blue Lock embodies the notion of being yourself and let starkly different characters find their calling and adapt to the ever-changing dynamics of Blue Lock that Ego has carefully and lovingly set into motion. I agree, and I'm a strong believer of the fact that it can get overly repetitive at times and borderline crazy, with Shidou likening football to childbirth. Somebody please keep this man away from children. But, well, as long as you get the big picture, that's all that really matters. With Shidou, there's no picture to see. There's only a beast that needs to be tamed and put on a leash if possible. Anyways, no matter how useless you think your talents are, they're worth chasing to make this life worth living. Take Igaguri, for example. Buddhist brother has one skill, and that's making the other team fall, and he is somehow still in Blue Lock. Isn't he a shocker? He's even turned his haters into lovers after fouling Rin of all people. Speaking of leashes, Rin urgently needs one as well. As for Igaguri, even stars like Noel Noah expect great things from a player we all thought wouldn't make it past round 1, but here we are. Kira might as well write down his own name in the death note, knowing he's off pitch and Igaguri is off the charts. It's always the unpredictability and the high stakes in Blue Lock that make it so compelling and hard to click off of, even when the anime may not be so up to par. Even a slideshow is entertaining when the plot is good enough. That alone is the single most best compliment Blue Lock can get. As long as the storyline and the characters remain consistent, and the whole facility of Blue Lock continues to be an upstanding psych ward, it'll always be something to look forward to and leave a hole once it ends. Whether or not Blue Lock continues its reign in the sports genre, its egoistic approach has no doubt left an indelible, who even uses that word, mark on the genre, one that's influence may go beyond the screen and inspire a whole generation of egoists. Hopefully normal ones though. One copy of Shidou is more than enough. We'd run out of leashes.